My own son listened to his wife and racked up over $8 million in debt against my company. He gave away my family heirlooms, lied to my face, treated me like some clueless old lady who didn't know any better. So I didn't say a word. I just signed the papers. And by the next morning, he wasn't the CEO anymore. He was a man with no company, no money, and no way out. The evening sky over the city had that deep steel blue glow, the kind that makes everything feel sharp and elegant. Up in the sleek rooftop space at the Cultural Center downtown, crystal glasses clinked under the lights. My son Nathan stood right in the spotlight, expensive champagne in hand, flashing that cocky grin of a guy who thought he'd built the whole world himself. He was celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Harlan Group. Mostly, he was celebrating himself as the brilliant new visionary in charge. What he didn't know was that while he smiled for the cameras downstairs, I was 3 floors below in a quiet little office signing documents that would flip his entire world upside down. My lawyer Rachel slid the final page across the dark wood desk. "You absolutely sure about this, Margaret? Once you sign all the voting rights in the holding company, snap straight back to you. Tomorrow he'll just be a guest in his own firm." I didn't hesitate for a second. My eyes flicked to my phone. Lydia, his young wife, had just posted a smug selfie in front of our company logo, wearing my late mother's priceless sapphire brooch. That heirloom was irreplaceable. Just last week, Nathan had lied right to my face, claiming it was at the jeweler for professional cleaning. That was the final straw. They both saw me as harmless old mom, the one who just pottered around her garden clipping roses, while they blew through my late husband's legacy behind my back. In the last couple of years, Nathan had loaded the company with risky loans totaling over $8 million, all to fund their ridiculous lifestyle. You don't build on shaky ground like that, not in this business. A quiet emergency clause in the bylaws kicked in right then. A house is only as strong as its deepest foundation. I said, my voice steady as concrete. I signed. The dark ink felt final. Nathan thought he was the architect of a shiny new era. He'd forgotten I was the one who calculated the structural integrity when he was still in diapers. Real justice doesn't need fireworks. It's just the quiet click of a lock falling into place. It all started rolling 4 months earlier on a regular Sunday. I'd dropped by Nathan's big house in the upscale Hills neighborhood unannounced, bringing apple pie for the grandkids. The massive place was weirdly quiet. On the marble kitchen island sat his work laptop, wide open, no password screen. I could hear the shower running upstairs, so he was probably in the bathroom. I meant to just close the lid, but an email caught my eye. It was a confirmation for a luxury trip to a tropical island resort. The dates matched exactly the week he'd told me he had to inspect a construction site out of state. The second traveler's name wasn't Lydia. It was his young assistant. In that moment, I didn't feel pain, just this eerie, crystal-clear calm. I sat at the kitchen table for a second, then simply walked out without waiting for him. On the drive back to my place in the city center, my mind started piecing everything together. Suddenly, I remembered every document I'd reviewed over the past 10 years. Nathan thought I was naive, but I knew all the network passwords. That night at home, I opened the hidden company accounts. What I found was worse than just an affair. He'd been quietly siphoning off funds to prop up Lydia's failing art gallery, over $3 million in losses. He wasn't just stealing from me or his father's memory. He was stealing from our 500 loyal employees. In our line of work, they call that embezzlement. I called it the end of my patience as a mother. I didn't shed a tear. Instead, I pulled out my old notebook and started methodically sketching the new structure for his inevitable exit. If you build a house on lies, you have to watch it get torn down carefully, on purpose. The plan for justice was locked in before the sun came up over the skyline. For the next 8 weeks, I played the perfect part. I showed up on time for Sunday family dinners, listened to Lydia complain endlessly about outdated city architecture, and smiled gently while Nathan rambled about his genius visions. It hurt to watch them soak up their own importance while the ground beneath them quietly crumbled. "Mom, you just don't get the modern world anymore?" he'd say in that condescending tone, sipping his pricey red wine. "These days, people want pure luxury, flashy stuff, not boring old buildings." I'd reply calmly, "Real functionality means safety and staying power, Nathan. A golden roof doesn't help anyone if the supporting walls are rotting." He'd just laugh loud and pat my hand like I was a silly kid. Right then, I knew for sure he'd lost every ounce of real respect for the lifetime of work I'd put in. While he partied at night, I met secretly with my late husband's old business partners in quiet little corner spots far from the trendy bars Nathan loved. I showed them the raw numbers from the past few months. The investors were horrified by the mismanagement. "He's tearing down everything we built, Margaret," said Frank, our longest-standing partner. "What are you planning to do?" "I need your votes for an emergency shareholders meeting," I said, more determined than ever. "I'm not out to destroy him blindly, but I am taking away his power. He needs a tough lesson in humility before he drags us all under." The investors didn't hesitate. They trusted my decades of experience way more than my son's hollow shine. Together, we quietly lined up everything, canceling credit lines, a total overhaul of management. Nathan suspected nothing. He was too busy admiring his own reflection in the city's glass towers. The trap was set, ready to spring. The Monday after the gala dawned bright and biting cold. I'd been up since sunrise in my quiet dining room sipping black coffee when the phone finally rang. It was exactly 9:15. "Mom, what the hell is going on? My company card just got declined at breakfast. It has to be some bank glitch." Nathan sounded completely panicked, his voice cracking with embarrassment in front of his associates. "That's no glitch, Nathan," I said slowly. "I personally froze all the private accounts and company cards this morning. Last night at 6, the new bylaws for the holding company were filed with the notary. As of right now, you have 0 signing authority for the Harlan Group." There was a long, agonizing silence. I could hear his stunned breathing while Lydia ranted loudly in the background. The IT team had already locked everything down overnight. "What, you're out of your mind? You can't just throw me out, that's my company," he yelled into the phone. "It's the Harlan Group's company, Nathan, and I personally hold 60% of the shares exactly as your father's will laid out. The reports on your massive embezzlement have been with the board for an hour. We have airtight proof, the tropical trip, the unauthorized payments to Lydia's gallery, the fake expense claims." A strange calm washed over me. "You have 2 choices. Either you officially step down today at noon for personal reasons, or I hand the files over to the district attorney this afternoon. The decision is yours. Your office at headquarters has already been cleared out. Your digital key doesn't work anymore, and your server access is gone." I hung up without waiting for his reply. My heart pounded hard, not from fear, but from deep relief at finally taking action. Justice in business is often a cold thing, especially when it carries your own family name. Just 2 hours after that call, Nathan stood in my living room. He didn't look like the glowing CEO from the night before. His designer suit was wrinkled, his eyes red with rage. Lydia loomed behind him, arms crossed tight. "You can't do this to us, Margaret. We have obligations, the kids' private school, our social standing," she shrieked. "What will people think?" "People will think Nathan is taking a necessary break," I said, with the cool tone I'd perfected over decades in real estate. "If you're both smart, you'll keep the real story to yourselves. To avoid a public scandal, I'm holding off on pressing charges for now. As for the house in the hills, it legally belongs to the Harlan Group, not you personally. You have exactly 4 weeks to find something new, something you can actually afford with whatever private money you have left." "You're throwing your own grandkids out on the street," Nathan shouted, trying to tug at my heartstrings. The kids will always have a warm home with me, I replied evenly. But you two need to learn what it really means to earn an honest living. I've arranged a rental apartment in a solid working neighborhood on the north side. First year's rent is already paid. It's modest but functional, a good place to get back in touch with reality. Lydia let out an almost hysterical laugh. That neighborhood? You really want to humiliate us like this? No, Lydia. I don't want to humiliate you. I want to finally teach you. You've spent years living arrogantly off the substance without knowing the real value of the work behind it. True justice means getting exactly what you deserve. Right now, you both deserve nothing but unvarnished reality. I handed Nathan the prepared resignation letter. Sign it now, or I call my lawyer for the criminal complaint this second. His hands shook as he took the heavy pen and signed with his head down. Before they could storm out, I stopped Lydia in the hallway with a small gesture. One last thing, Lydia. My mother's sapphire brooch, the one you wore so proudly last night. She stiffened. It legally belongs to me. Nathan gave it to me for our anniversary, she snapped. I shook my head. Nathan can't give away things that aren't legally his, Lydia. That brooch is an irreplaceable family heirloom. I stepped closer, my voice dropping low but sharp as a blade. In the official records of the Harlan Foundation, it's listed as inalienable cultural property. Either you hand it over right now, or I add grand theft and misappropriation of foundation assets to the charges. You know exactly how the courts handle clear evidence like this. Lydia glared at me with pure hatred. She rummaged in her expensive bag, yanked out the brooch, and hurled it onto the carpet at my feet. Take your old junk. We don't need you. I didn't bend down right away. I waited calmly until I heard the heavy front door slam behind them. Only then did I pick it up carefully and rub my thumb over the cool stone. It was flawless and undamaged, just like the honor of my family that I'd painstakingly restored. Nathan and Lydia had tried to trade tradition for quick cash to fuel their luxury. They never understood that real strength lies in things you simply can't buy. That same afternoon, I drove to headquarters downtown. When I walked through the big glass doors, the lobby fell into an eerie hush. Employees stopped and stared. I called the whole staff together in the atrium right away. My son, Nathan, has decided to step down from leadership, I announced clearly. I'll be running the company on an interim basis. There will be no layoffs. We're going back to what made us great: quality, absolute honesty, and real responsibility to our people. The foundation was solid again at last. 3 weeks after the big shakeup, I visited Nathan and my 2 granddaughters for the first time in their new place. It was a simple older building on a lively side street in a working-class neighborhood far from the isolated glamour of the hills. The facades had some graffiti here and there. Lydia, of course, wasn't around. I'd heard she was spending all her time with her remaining rich friends downtown, refusing to accept the fall. Nathan opened the door. He wore a plain gray sweater, his hair unusually messy. A few unopened moving boxes still stacked in the small, cramped kitchen. The girls played on the worn wood floors in the living room. "Mom," he said, clearly surprised. His voice wasn't angry anymore, just bone-tired from the last few days. "I wanted to see how you're settling in," I said quietly, setting a grocery bag of fresh food on the table. "And I wanted to talk straight with you about your future, Nathan." "What future?" he laughed bitterly. "I'm the guy in this whole city who got fired by his own mother. No one in the industry will ever offer me a leadership role again." I looked at him seriously. "Maybe you shouldn't start there anyway, Nathan. You got lost in the world of big numbers and ego." I spoke today with a small architecture firm that restores historic buildings. They're looking for someone to handle tough on-site project management. No fancy offices, no driver or limos. Just work boots, hard plans, and real responsibility on the job site. He stared at me in disbelief. You seriously want me back out on construction sites like some rookie, I want you to relearn how to build something stone by stone from the ground up, Nathan. You've lost touch with the basics. If you prove yourself there for 2 years without complaint, we can talk about coming back to the Harlan Group. But not as the boss, as an employee who earns real respect the honest way. He was quiet for a long time, staring out the window. This is your only real shot, Nathan. Be the kind of man your daughters can be proud of. Nathan actually took the tough job. It was a massive shock to his system. Every morning at 6 sharp, he'd sit tired on the commuter train among regular workers. His hands got rough and calloused in just a few weeks. As I'd expected, Lydia couldn't handle the stripped-down life for long. For a woman like her, wealth wasn't something you earned through hard work. It was her birthright. One evening, Nathan called me, his voice shaking with tears. "She's gone for good, Mom." She packed her bags this morning and left for a rich gallery guy in another city. She didn't even ask the girls if they wanted to say goodbye. She just left. My heart ached deeply for my granddaughters, but I stayed steady on the phone. "I'm so sorry for the girls, Nathan. But at least now you know exactly who she was. You have the freedom to focus completely on your daughters and your new work without her constant toxic pull." "I was such a damn fool," he sobbed. "I risked my entire inheritance for someone who ditched me like trash the second things got hard. We all make big mistakes in life, son. The real question is whether we have the strength to learn from them or just drown in self-pity. You're living an honest life for the first time in years. In the end, that's worth more than any flashy house in the hills." At first, Nathan was frustrated. His new co-workers at the firm didn't let him forget his old arrogance. Here comes the fancy guy from the city. They'd tease when he messed up a measurement. He wanted to quit more than once. But every evening, when he came home to that small apartment and looked into his daughter's eyes, he knew he had no choice. He had to push through. From then on, I started taking the grandkids almost every weekend to my place in the leafy suburbs. We spent a lot of time in the garden. Nathan often joined on Sundays, worn out from the hard week, but way more present than before. He didn't brag about million-dollar deals anymore. Instead, he spoke with real pride about successfully restoring an old roof structure. A whole year flew by. Nathan had worked his way up through sheer diligence at the architecture firm. His boss, an old-school, no-nonsense architect, called me one day. Not because I owned the big company, but because he was genuinely impressed with my son. "He's punctual, technically precise, and has a real eye for details," he told me. He finally stopped acting like an arrogant boss and started thinking like a true craftsman. On a sunny, crisp fall day, I invited Nathan into my big office downtown. He wore his simple work clothes with a bit of job site dust still on his sturdy boots. He looked physically stronger and calmer. When he entered, he didn't automatically take the big executive chair like before. He humbly sat in one of the plain visitor seats. "I read the final report on your project," I began. "You did outstanding work there. You cut costs without compromising quality." "Thanks, Mom," he said simply. It felt incredibly good to watch something real grow with my own hands again. "I've done a lot of thinking this year about Dad, his values, and everything you quietly did for us all those years." I looked at him for a long moment and felt that something fundamental had shifted in him. "Today I'm offering you a new position in our company, Nathan. We need a capable project manager for a new affordable housing development on the east side. It's not a glamorous area and there's no company car, but it's one of the most important jobs we have right now. We're building for families who need decent, attainable homes." He gave his first truly genuine smile in forever. "I'd love to take on the challenge, Mom. And I'll keep the apartment anyway. The kids have settled in, and I don't need luxury anymore to know who I really am." In that moment, I knew with total certainty that my tough love had worked. I'd taken away his fake empire, but I'd given him back his human backbone. Almost exactly 2 years after that fateful gala downtown, We stood together at the topping out ceremony for the new neighborhood on the east side. It was a clear, cold day with a fresh wind blowing across the big construction site. Nathan stood high on the scaffolding, heavy hammer in hand, and drove the final nail into the big wooden beam amid the cheers of everyone there. The workers whooped and clapped with real respect. Over time, he'd become one of them, valued for his expertise and his tireless presence on site. Lydia had vanished from our lives long ago. Nathan had full custody of the girls, and they were clearly thriving in their new environment. Today, they were genuinely proud of their dad, the one who no longer built castles in the air, but houses for real people. After the official part, the two of us stood quietly at the edge of the site, watching the solid building glow in the sunset. "It's nowhere near as flashy as your old designs," I said softly. "It's so much better this way, Mom," he replied, wiping dust from his forehead. "It's built honest. This building will still be standing long after we're gone. That's what really counts in the end, right?" I nodded slowly, my heart full of peace. I reached deep into my coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet case. I handed it to him without a word. He opened it carefully and saw my mother's sparkling sapphire brooch. "Keep it safe for your oldest daughter," I said quietly. "And when she's old enough one day, tell her the whole unvarnished story. Tell her about our traditions about big mistakes and how vital it is to always have an honest foundation in life." Nathan took the case with misty eyes and squeezed my hand briefly. "Thank you, Mom, for everything, especially for not giving up back then." I looked out over the rooftops of the city. It was always changing, just like us. I'd saved my life's work, but far more important, I'd healed my family through truth and consequences. We were Harlan and Harlan again. Solid as quality concrete, clear as pure glass, and ready for whatever the future might bring. The foundation was finally level and true once more. This building would stand forever. Because in the end, money isn't the foundation of a life. It's the decisions we make every single day and the people we choose to trust. Nathan learned that the hard way, and I learned that silence isn't always weakness. Sometimes it's just the moment before you take everything back.